You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible.
One of the things that we saw, of course, in the election in 2020, we saw a significant turnout as folks went to the polls to elect President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris to their offices. In addition, Democrats took control of the United States Senate. John Ossoff, Raphael Warnock winning those Senate seats there in Georgia. That is what has ticked off Republicans. Today, Republicans threw out Liz Cheney, the number 3 in the leadership in the House, because of her criticism of Donald Trump. That's how they do it. But what's been happening in the state level, we have seen massive voter suppression in the state, and especially here in Texas. Republicans here, okay, angry with turnout here in Harris County, where Houston is located, Dallas County as well, changing the laws to rig the elections. That's what they have been doing. They have been, the evil folks have been busy in the state capital of Austin, Texas. And let's go live to Austin right now, where Houston, State Senator Borris Miles is right now. Senator Miles, my alpha brother, glad to have you on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
It's good to see you, Brother Martin. It's really good to see you back on the yard, my brother.
Indeed. Always glad to be back at JY and the Tray. Let's talk about, again, what y'all have been fighting in Austin. It has been a whole lot of evil taking place as Republicans, again, claimed safe elections when it happened, but now they're passing all of these laws. Why?
Well, I can tell you why, Brother Martin. Because we increased our voting. We had 1.6 million people turn out in our last voting cycle. We had a very a team led by a young brother by the name of Chris Hollins, who was our county clerk for the county of Harris. And he and his team did a very good job of thinking outside the box with new things that we could get to turn our people out, like 24-hour voting, drive-through voting. These things increased our numbers. So with the increase of numbers for the Harris County area, it really got the attention of the Republican Party. You got to understand, Harris County probably has one of the top, within the top 5 block of African-American Democratic voters in the country. So it put fear in their hearts. It put fear in their hearts to the fact that they tried to investigate and claim that some of our elected leaders, our great elected leaders in the Harris County area, such as, I think he's going to be on with us, Rodney Ellis, Commissioner Rodney Ellis, our great Sheila Jackson Lee, and myself. They hired a private investigator, Brother Martin, at the tune of $250,000 to find evidence that we had committed voter fraud. After that $250 he spent on nothing was produced out of it. Brother Martin, there is no organized voter fraud going on here in Harris County. There is no organized voter fraud going on in the state of Texas. What's happening is we're waking people up. We're doing things that's innovative and getting people to the polls. And just because the state codes, election codes, doesn't speak to a matter such as drive-through voting, does not mean it's illegal. They're trying to make it illegal in this SB 7. That's what's going on now. So we're here doing a stellar job, continue to shake people up, to get them out to vote, to make sure they exercise their right to vote, to keep our democracy strong, and we've gotten their attention, brother. It's just that simple.
Senator Miles, I've had folks hit me up on social media, and they've said, "Hey, Democrats aren't fighting hard enough." There's a stat that I came across last night, though, that people need to understand. Of the 99 legislative bodies in the United States, Republicans control 61 of them. And so for the people out there who complain about voting, the people out there who say it's not important, why y'all doing this, again, it's hard to sit here and stop Republican-led voter suppression when they control 61 out of 99. That means that 2/3 of all legislative chambers in the United States are controlled by Republicans. There are 31 Republican governors. They control 30 both chambers. And so that's the difficulty here in Texas. Democrats were 5 seats away in 2020 from taking control of the House. They were not able to do so. And so when you're trying to deal with gerrymandering and voter suppression, it's a little hard to do it when you don't have control of at least one of the bodies.
That's correct. And, you know, my Republican colleagues get very offended when I refer to this as Jim Crow legislation. Well, dog, that's what it is. It's intimidation, it's suppression. You know, too much power can be corruptive. And like you said, they have the control now, but they're trying to hold on to it because they now see, in the wake of all the social injustice that we're dealing with, they now see that they're doing what I said on the Senate floor in my debate. They kicked the bear. And I'm hoping and praying, Roland, and going to be working toward it, Brother Martin, that we not only turn out more young voters, not only increase our numbers from 1.6 to 2.6, okay? Because now is the time that we, as people of color, African-American, Latinx, Asian, now is the time that we have to stand up because they are trying to deteriorate our democracy for what we made so many advances in. So it's time to stand up. We're going to actually be working harder here in Harris County than we did in the last election cycle. And I'm going to see to it, and you'll be proud of your old hometown.
We talked about the voter suppression bill, the census, gerrymandering. Again, Republicans in Texas refused to really put money into the census. I was reading one story. Democrats should be making gains in Texas because of the increase in the Hispanic population. Republicans are going to use that to gerrymander to give them more seats. That's the thing that I keep trying to also explain to people if they don't seem to understand that lack of voting, not filling out the census, goes hand in hand with gerrymandering.
Right, and as you know, we redistrict every 10 years here in Texas. And we're in the middle of a redistricting right now. Our census numbers are late, as you alluded to. We will probably have to come back for a special session in September, October, November sometime once we've received our numbers. And you got to understand something else. Because they have the leadership now in this building, they will be drawing the lines. We'll have very little input onto what our district lines look like, our congressional lines look like. And I can tell you, like you said, we're supposed to get 3 new congressional seats. It's predicted. Now they're saying 2. And I can tell you that they are going to try to use that against us and hold it over our head. And we will have very little say, Brother Martin, in what our districts look like. But quite frankly, I can't see how they can gerrymander any more of some of our minority districts. I mean, my district goes from all the way north to south of the Beltway 8, as you know, all the way down to Rosharon, Texas. So what are they going to take me to, Galveston?
This is what happens again when you have power, and this is why I am consistently trying to explain to folks who watch this show, we cannot ignore voting on the federal and the state level. For the people who are watching who then say, man, I don't see any policies being enacted, this is what happens when you don't have power. And so when they are in power, listen, 85% of the people who voted for Donald Trump were white. The Republican Party is a white party. 61% of the people who voted for Joe Biden are white. That means that 39% of Joe Biden's vote totals came from people of color, minority voters. That's what we need folks to understand with what's going on here. And so for the people who yell and scream, voting is a waste of time, but then they turn around and complain about lack of policy, well, guess what? You now see what happens when you don't vote, so you can't act like voting has no direct correlation with policy.
Brother Martin, you're exactly right. Elections have consequences. Not voting have consequences. And what we're suffering through right now, the lack of leadership and the lack of, I've been serving for 15 years. And in 15 years, Brother Martin, I've never served in the majority. I can't wait till that day comes. But our people have to realize elections have consequences. And all those brothers that are telling you, I'm not seeing no serious policy getting moved, I don't see anything happening for our communities and our people. Well, you know what? As long as we're having to push the ball uphill, and as long as we're in the minority and double minorities, we're going to continue to have, what I call Jim Crow legislation popping up, and they're going to continue to push it as far as they can. I mean, right here in Texas, I think you want to talk about that too. We're now going to have something called free carry. What they call unconstitutional carry. I don't call it unconstitutional carry, Brother Martin, because it has nothing to do with the Constitution. It has to do with this being the state of Texas. And when I say the state of Texas, they're opening up the doors and claiming this is the Wild Wild West. And anybody can carry a concealed weapon. And it doesn't have to be concealed. Anybody can carry a firearm, Brother Martin. They can carry it into police stations. They can carry them into the churches now. They can carry them into universities. You can be a felon. You can be a criminal. And you're able to carry it, and you'll be able to carry a firearm. Now I want you, as I explained in my debate to my colleague, my white colleague, imagine what that's going to do to communities like what you and I grew up in. Brothers freely walking around, brothers and sisters freely walking around with firearms on the outside of their shirts. Imagine how much probable cause that's going to give police officers to now start, stopping people and pulling them over. And again,
this is why we emphasize. This is why we emphasize that, look, you can sit here and yell, scream, tweet, and whine all day on social media about voting and how it means nothing. But then if you don't, that's why I simply say, shut the hell up. Texas State Senator Borris Miles, I certainly appreciate it, sir. Thank you so very much. Keep up the fight in Austin.
Will do, brother. Good to see you.
Likewise, thanks a lot. Let me go to my panel. A. Scott Bolden, former chair of the National Bar Association Political Action Committee. Monique Presley, lawyer, crisis manager. Also joining us is Pastor Lee May, Transforming Faith Church, former CEO of DeKalb County, Georgia. Glad to have all of you here. Scott, that point. Well, first of all, let me do this here. I'm in Texas, so Monique, I'll go ahead and start with you first because you down the street. Monique's not here. Okay. Well, first of all, Scott, get over it. But, Scott, you lucked up. She's not here. So she'll be here a little bit later. So you lucked up. So shut up. So, again, this is the thing that I keep – again, there are people who sit here all day. And they talk on social media, and they whine, they complain, they sit here and say, I got these fools, oh, man, you sitting here, shilling for the Democratic Party, about voting for Biden. And I'm sitting there going, okay, take your pick. You got one party that wants to make it difficult to vote, wants to get rid of curbside vote, not wants to. They have outlawing curbside voting. They're outlawing drive-through voting. They're now putting ballot drop boxes inside of voting locations. They're cutting the hours of early voting locations. They're changing all of the rules. Democrats support expanding voter access, expanding same-day voter registration. But then you got these fools saying, oh, I can't believe you were sitting there telling folk should vote for Joe Biden. It was two choices, Trump, Biden. Which one your punk asses wanted?
Well, you certainly make great point. I think the most telling statistic, Roland, is the fact that the Republicans control the majority of the state houses and the majority of the state Senate and state rep houses across the country. You cannot forget about voting at that local level because you see now where we're gerrymandering, where the census has come out, and you're going to see them stretch out. It's the most anti-democratic thing after you lose an election to then want to have fewer people vote and suppress more voters as opposed to wanting to expand your voting base to get more votes than the Democrat. But the Republicans know their ideas, their legislation, and their views of the world just aren't that popular. And so they're left in this with this power vacuum. And the power vacuum says voter suppression, gerrymandering, and let's lock out and make it difficult for as many people of color or Democratic voters, wherever they may be in whatever state, let's shut them down. Because remember, the big lie is the narrative of the big lie is being driven not by GOP voters, but was driven by Donald Trump and other congressional leaders and state leaders. And so then the reaction was our GOP voters listened to that leadership and then said, we lack confidence in the results. You didn't lose confidence in the results. You lost confidence that you could win, and you're upset about not being able to win. And expanding the voter base only hurts your chances to win in the future.
This is my Leah, I'll go to you. I mean, this is the thing that, and again, I keep trying to connect voting, who wins, with public policy.
Yeah.
Right.
What you are seeing is what happens when Republicans win state rep, state Senate seats. And for the people who seem not to understand this, the state rep and the state senators, they control the lines that are drawn in the state. So then they are able, when we say gerrymandering, they are able to now draw lines that make it easier for them to win, for Democrats to lose, to disenfranchise voters who did not vote for Republicans. And so even if you have a massive Democratic turnout, and we've seen this in Wisconsin and other states, they still maintain power because they have been able to gerrymander the districts. And the Supreme Court, the conservative Supreme Court, said we don't get involved in political disputes. That's up to the state Supreme Court. Well, guess what? Those are gerrymandered. So Republicans control the state Supreme Courts. So you're never going to be able to get out of this box. And so Black power, Latino power is diluted because of gerrymandering. And for the folks who say don't vote, you are making this possible.
Well, my good Alfred brother, I'm going to say amen and let's go home.
Oh,
You
my
said
goodness gracious.
Oh,
More alpha.
you have
Hey.
said it all, brother. It's ridiculous, man. It is the quintessential example of moving the goalposts. You don't like your election results, the fact that you lost, and so you're going to change the rules, man. That's exactly what happened in Georgia. Is happening in Texas right now. It happened in Florida, and they won the election in Florida, the presidential election, and so many other seats. But they see the writing on the wall, and they keep changing the rules to benefit them. And what are they doing? They're prolonging their power and influence by changing these rules. And let me also connect something to what you just said. When they tore up the Voting Rights Act some years ago, when they tore that up and they removed the formula of determining which states has to have pre-clearance before you can change rules, let me tell you what happened in Georgia. When they continued to gerrymander those districts, they put all the Black folk in competing districts, and then they said, well, we wanted to make sure that that our current Black elected officials are safe in their seats. They put them all together, right? So that we couldn't be competitive in other districts all throughout the state. And so they use the Voting Rights Act, and they reference the Voting Rights Act to actually prove their point of why they put Black folk in the same districts, quote unquote, to call it safe for them, man. It's just ridiculous. In Georgia, you know, our current governor, man, who signed that suppressive voter legislation, man, a picture paints 1,000 words, right? In that private room, in his room, a room full of white men. It's nothing wrong with white men. It's a problem with all white men in the same room, right? And standing up underneath a painting that pictures a plantation, man. If that didn't tell you all that you needed to know about what was going on, all along the while, a Black woman is knocking on the door trying to get in right outside the governor's office, a state legislator that says, hey, I want to get in, I want to talk. And they arrest her. Man, if we're not back in the Jim Crow era, man, I don't know what else is, man. And unfortunately, you got games that are being played, man, with our voting rights. We support greater voter access, right? And anything that even looks like it is suppressing or reducing or limiting voter access to the ballot, man, we got to reject it, man. But they know what they're doing. It's a reason why the governor in Georgia signed that piece of legislation the same day it was passed. It's a reason. Man, that's unheard of. Man, the governor is still signing legislation, and our legislature has been out of session now for weeks and weeks now. The governor never signs legislation like that, let alone when it's so controversial like this, man. We gotta continue to fight, man. We gotta continue to fight for federal legislation that is expanding a greater voter access and restricting these voter suppressive actions that we've been seeing in Georgia and Florida and Texas and other places all across the country.
All right, folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends, go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.